Hello, my friends. So this is actually day one after the day that we actually did the first step in processing the sheep. So I really want to get this hide fleshed, and I'm using this method where you use a power washer and you just power wash that off. It works really well. You do have to be careful not to put the sprayer too close to the hide because you will cut it. But because of my hands and my back with my lupus and my rheumatoid arthritis, I really cannot flesh these in the normal manner. And this has worked for me. I've done it a couple of times. It, probably took me about 20-30 minutes to get this whole hide fleshed and ready to finish. Now, one of the things here on the homestead that is a big deal to me is I am working towards using as much of the animal as I can, and processing these hides and getting them to where it's something that I can use is definitely high priority for me. So adding this small amount of work to the process is definitely worth it to me. Okay, we finished, and the boys are going to hang overnight. We are headed to the YMCA. I can barely move. My back is absolutely killing me. My feet, my hands, all the things. This is the step to eating more lamb so that I feel better, because this sucks. How do you feel?
I'm very tired.
So we're going to see you guys tomorrow, because we're going to go shower and come home and probably go to bed. So good night. So day two, after we've allowed the sheep to hang overnight to cool down the meat, wrapping them in the trash bags works really well. We're going to clean up the table and pull out all of the equipment to get started in cutting these animals up for use. Hey guys, so yesterday we did the first stage of the processing of two lambs, two boys. They had both kind of been destined for freezer camp. It is about 45 degrees out right now, so we had to kind of move through this really quickly. I am not a seasoned butcher into getting everything like you would if you sent your stuff to the butcher. Normally I just do a lot of ground because that's the easiest. I'm not really into roasts, so we're not cutting roasts. That's all going into ground because we do a lot of burgers. I am going to attempt to do the chops and maybe a rack of ribs and that kind of stuff. So we're just going to take you through the process that we do. We've watched a few videos. If I think about it, I'll link them below, the ones that we watched. But there's not very many out there that are whole lamb, but you butcher lamb, goat, deer, all the same. So basically you can watch any of those and the breakdown is basically the same. So here we go. So one of the things that I have started using is this reciprocating saw that's battery powered. This happens to be a DeWalt one. It works really well. I, being as new as I am to this process, have not perfected the technique of just using a knife to break down these animals. So splitting him down the center and then cutting off into the cuts that I want it to be. Now, this is the first one that we did. He is a 3-year-old sheep, so this is mutton. He actually was supposed to be neutered, but we found that he did have his testicles, so he wasn't actually neutered. We purchased him as a male that had already been neutered. So this explained a lot of his aggressive behavior that we were seeing. So that made a lot of sense to me. Now, the one thing that I have found is sheep with testicles does not affect the flavor of the meat like it does some other animals, to include goats. And I think that's because sheep do not urinate on themselves like goats do. And so it really doesn't affect the flavor of the meat. This particular breed that I have is a very mild flavor. In fact, this is some of the best lamb that I've ever had in my life out of these bloodlines. These bloodlines came from my farm that I had in Washington, sold them to a friend, and now I purchase babies from her to rebuild my herd. Lamb is definitely one of the meats that I could absolutely live off of, which bonus is actually one of the recommended meats if you have an autoimmune, especially lupus. It's full of minerals, it's full of vitamins, and it really will help your body heal. So if you're comparing lamb to beef, lamb tends to have a higher ratio of omega-3s to omega-6 fatty acids, while beef may be better for vitamin B12. So adding it definitely into your rotation of food that you're going to eat on a regular basis, especially if you're doing a carnivore type diet, is really important to equal out your omegas and your B12. So I have found with my sheep, as I am processing them, due to the fact that I do a grass-fed only, there's not a high amount of fat just hanging off of the animal as you would see in a grain-fed animal. So that makes this an organic grass-fed lamb, which is the highest quality lamb that you can get and is absolutely the most beneficial for your nutrition. So the one thing about having a lot of fat on your meat, it does slow down the digestive process, and it gives the protein more time to actually break down in your body. It does have less connective tissue than beef, which does make it easier to digest. So if you have a very sensitive system, which when you have an autoimmune is definitely something that you're dealing with, that's one of the reasons why lamb is so much healthier for you and easier for your body to use and help you heal. One of the things with grass-fed lamb that it is actually considered anti-inflammatory, which truly is going to help my rheumatoid arthritis. Also, as a grass-fed lamb, it contains a higher ratio of omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so that was fast for him. I did cut my finger. I would say we got less than half off of Bojangles and we did Charlie. We did not keep the bones on the ribs. They're just really tiny, and I think I've got enough for a lot of good bone broth. So I was going to cut the chops and do all the things, but he was just so small that it was almost not worth it. So I'm glad that I did some chops off of Charlie so that I can have those. He is older. Charlie's actually 3. Bojangles is a year old. So it will be interesting. I really wanted to do like a taste test between the different two and all of those things. But since I'm just grinding this into burger, I'm going to grind it all down into burger. And I really like my meat done that way. Plus I can make the hamburger meat in my little press thing that I have. So, but I'm shocked at the amount, the difference. And the reason why I decided to go ahead and butcher Bojangles, even though his jangles did come in, which is really odd. Tell me if you guys have ever had this happen. So as a baby, he had testicles, everything was great. And then it was like 6 months in, he had no testicles. It was the middle of the summer, so it was not cold and he just pulled them up or any of those things. But literally it looked like he had gotten injured, and the testicles were gone. And then just recently we noticed that they were back. Full size, just fine, all those things. But he stayed really small. And so I didn't want to keep him as a breeder because of that. So I'll be looking for a different ram for in the future that is a good wool lamb. He produces good wool. But anywho, we're done with that. We're going to clean up our mess. We're exhausted. We do have to run into town, so we're going to do that. But like I said, I'm not an expert per se at all, but I have definitely processed enough to kind of know really what I like to eat. If I can get one that's a good size at a year old, then I'll break it down into all the cuts. I just think it's a waste of time and energy when they're so small, because you have to eat 6 chops in order to even feel like you got a meal. Where in this aspect, I can make a burger, I can season it like gyro meat, I can make gyros, some of these are good enough squares that I may keep for kebabs and do kebabs with them. We'll just have to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this channel and it inspires you, or that you enjoyed this video and that it inspires you to try to do your own, because it really is. This would have cost me $400. It's about $200 per sheep to have them processed, which I think is a little outrageous, but that's what the going price apparently right now. So this saved me 400 bucks, and I've got meat that I can eat in my freezer that'll hopefully help heal my autoimmune. So anyway, bye guys. And that brings us to today's sponsor, which is Vevor. Vevor has sent us a cooler, and I've used quite a few of their products, and this is just another added to the lineup. They have really good tech support that I have found, and I've been really impressed with the quality of the stuff that they've built. And I don't know if you've been to the store to pick up a cooler. They are really expensive, and I'm finding that they're just not being built as nice as they used to be. And I'll tell you, as we used this cooler on our trip to pick up our beef, we were able to run a couple of other errands and got home, and the meat was nice and cool. And with only our frozen shrimp as used as a cooling agent inside the cooler, nothing thawed as far as the frozen shrimp, and it did keep the meat really good, really nice, in order for us to have healthy beef in order to add to our freezer. And this was about $334 worth of meat, so it's extremely important to protect that investment and at least be able to get it home and get it into the freezers. This was a nice, smaller, compact cooler that easily fit onto the back of the seat of the truck and did not get in the way any of the other things that we needed to add to the truck. So if you're looking for a cooler, and I would highly recommend contacting Vevor and looking into their lineup. There is a link in the description below to the one that we got. And yes, I definitely recommend the company. Thank you so much, Vevor, for continuing to support our channel, and we really do love your products. Of course, you really could have showed it being rollied. This was a much better rolly spot than a carrying spot.
I didn't want to lift.
Okay, first off, pretty excited that all of that stuff fit in that cooler. Okay, so that works because we have some other errands to run, and the cooler in the back, being that we live 45 minutes from where we get our meat at, this is a really good way to keep your meat cool when you're driving this distance, or if you have to stop and do other errands when you go to the grocery store. So I highly recommend Beaver. They sell a whole lot of different things, and I own quite a few of their stuff, from a goat milking machine to a cream separator. Gosh, I'm trying to think of all the other things that we have, because we have quite a few stuff, but this is our newest in the lineup, and I like them as a company, so I highly recommend them. If you need a cooler, if you're looking for a cooler, there's a link in the description. And yeah. Okay, can you reach in and grab that other side? Awkward. Oh, can you shut the door? So we're not using the wheels because we have super dirt. We have a dirt driveway, so we're going to carry it. It's awkward with that one little handle, but if you went down to the second thingy, there you go. Now it rides well. Okay. Oh, that's still really nice and cold. Yeah. Those are still frozen. So, still have to cut this meat up, get it prepped to go in the freezer. So I don't want to take it out of there because we have a few things to do before we'll be ready to do that. So we're going to leave it right there while we get on with our other work. It's catching on the fat, and that's what it's doing.
Oh wow.
So as long as it's ground nicely and it's not this stuff. So one of the things, I absolutely love my meat grinder here. We did not slow down and take the time to cut all the silver skin off the pieces, and it continued to get stuck and slow down this entire process, which was extremely frustrating. So in the future, I will definitely be taking that time as we're processing. And I've also decided that for me personally, I need to do one lamb at a time and fully process that entire animal. Now, for us, we had a very short window of a really cool night left of the year, of the season. And so we wanted to get both of those boys processed and put together, but there's so much work behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of people account for. Having a really good meat grinder for your grind is really important. As you can see, I'm whipping through this really quickly until I hit the stuff that had the silver skin on it. With both of these lambs, so my first sheep, he was a 3-year-old male. He had approximately 45 pounds of meat, and the smaller male had half of that in meat. So we did pretty much take all of the meat off of the bone. I decided to do a lot of grind. In the summertime, I really like a lot of burgers. I also can turn this into gyro meat and season it multiple different ways to continue to enjoy eating this animal that I have raised and we have processed. So I did start using my food processor, and but I do have to say it worked really well. So if you don't have a meat grinder, you can use a food processor. You just chop it to the point that you want it. I did not, again, cut out all the silver skin. So when I cooked this into a lamb burger, which it was excellent in flavor and texture and all of that, it did have some of the silver skin, which was a bit chewy. And my dogs definitely enjoyed that aspect of getting to have that on the side of the plate and then get it after I was done eating. So at this point, I was just exhausted. I wanted to get through getting this meat ground and get it into my freezer. I just packaged these into Ziploc baggies because I know I'm going to be going through this meat over the next couple of months. It's not a huge amount. So the one thing about lamb is it is very easy to process on your own, not having to send it to the butcher and work on their schedule and that kind of stuff. Now, I do not hang my meat and age my meat, which is one of the reasons why it's very mild, but I like a mild flavored lamb. So if I was doing multiple, like in the future, I feel like I'm probably going to need a minimum of 12 sheep processed in my freezer a year because of the fact that I'm eating carnivore and I'm using this as my main source of meat going forward with my autoimmunes. So I do have a food saver and I will be sealing things up a lot better. But since I knew that I was going to go through this meat really quickly, I just tossed it into these Ziploc baggies and labeled it, and we got it in the freezer to freeze. So I do believe that this is one of the better animals to have on your property, and I will be doing a video that goes into that a lot more of why I think you should own sheep, but this is one of them. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you supporting the channel, and if you've never processed your own, I highly recommend giving it a try.